It's July, so there's surprises all the time. This one in the favor of Penn State football. I'm here with recruiting insider Ryan Snyder breaking down Penn State's latest commitment. I'm your host, Thomas Frank Carr. Ryan, Friday afternoon, I was wondering what's the Friday news dump for the week, and this time it's a good thing for Penn State football. Take us through what happened this afternoon.
Well, I didn't get to go to the gym, first and foremost, so thank you,
Same
Elliot
here.
Washington, for ruining my routine. I'll remember that when I'm drinking beer tonight and not feeling well. Anyway, Elliot Washington, man, heck of a pickup for Penn State. This was a big one. There was like two surprises that I've been waiting for to drop, basically. It's been Elliot Washington and Evan Link. Like, these are the two who can really just kind of come at any time, and they're going to surprise us, it feels like. Well, one of those fell today in Elliot Washington. We've known for, a few weeks now that Elliot Washington was down to basically Penn State and Michigan State. Yes, he was committed to Alabama, but all signs were really pointing to him ending up in the one of the two Big Ten programs. Now, I believe one of his relatives actually played at Michigan State, so there was a lot of thought that the Spartans would be the team to beat here, and just another quiet confidence from Penn State. But of course, we saw that too with Jason Moore and some others. So it's just, I don't know where to go, right, when I'm trying to put in picks and push these kind of things. And then when you have another player like Elliot who he's committed elsewhere, so he's really extra quiet. He's not talking about any of this stuff. So it's hard to gauge at times. But, man, number 66 nationally. So right now so if you look at the On3 consensus rankings, he's the fourth rated guy in the class now. Of course, you have Birchmeyer, Javen Williams, Tamarian Parker, and now Elliott. You basically have 4 top 100 recruits. So that's massive. Yep. He sits at 102 in the consensus. And if you look at just On3's ratings, I believe he's actually a little bit ahead of Tamarian Parker, I believe. So he'd be the third in the On3. But either way, in the On3 ratings, Penn State now has 4 true top 100 prospects. So just a big get, 5'10". We have a 5'11", 187. So a little bit of undersized, which is, of course, Penn State everybody wants those 6'1", 6'2" corners if you can. But, man, a heck of an athlete here and, plays on a great program at Venice. I believe it's Venice in Florida. And, man, Penn State's excited about this one, and I think their fans should be too.
Yeah, it's an interesting evaluation. We'll get to a little bit of it here later in this breaking news segment. The fun fact is, last weekend I was looking at Trayon Webb, Evan Link, and Jason Moore trying to prep for July. I had not gotten to Elliot Washington in depth yet, but we do have a good firm view of who he is, just maybe not some of the details for later in T. Frank's film room at the second half. But, flipping from Alabama to Penn State, that second corner position, I am here eating my words saying that Penn State was going to have to find somebody within the class to move to corner. How important is this particular position as well, where in some places he's a safety, in the On3 rankings he is a corner, and that's where he's going to play for Penn State. So how important is it to finally fill that position?
He will absolutely be a corner for Penn State. There's been a lot of talk about, will King Mack be a corner? Could Conrad Hussey be a corner? Those guys are definitely safeties, and I know some fans on our board disagree. I've watched all the boards. I know there's a good group of people out there who don't see that happening, and maybe that won't be the case. But right now, Lamont Payne and Elliot Washington are coming in to be cornerbacks. Hussey, Dakaari Nelson, and King Mack are technically safeties. Now, of course, King Mack's kind of a little bit different. So is Dakaari, too. Dakaari, a lot of talk about linebacker. And Hussey seems like the only true safety. But then, there's so much talk about cornerback, too. But, yeah, absolutely coming in as a cornerback for Penn State. And this should be it for defensive backs. I don't see a 6th defensive back coming into the mix here. This should be it as long as everybody sticks. But, of course, it's July 8th, and they can't sign for, 6 more months. So God knows where this is going to end up. But it's a good day, and I think Penn State fans should be excited. Penn State fans, you know how this works by now. It's recruiting, and who knows what will happen.
Yeah, and I know there's a certain percentage of the Lions Den message board who are saying all of them but one are from Florida, so none of them feel confident about any of these defensive backs. But it's a good group when you look at it, too. You got Lamont Payne. We've talked quite a bit about him. Elliot Washington coming in as another cornerback in this group. And then the 3 safeties you just outlined, the versatility and some of the high-end abilities. Dakaari Nelson is a very good football player. You got Elliot Washington, both those St. Thomas Aquinas safeties. So versatility and depth in this 5-man secondary class. Where does this rank in terms of strength in the secondary from what you've seen kind of in the last couple of years for Penn State because they've got a strong secondary. I think that's very important to Manny Diaz's defense to keep that up because of the pressure that's put on those players to, lock down their assignments with as many players that are going after the quarterback. So where does this kind of, in your mind, where does this filter to as far as secondary classes over the last couple of years?
Well, Penn State brought in a pretty good safety class last year, of course, with KJ and Mekhi Flowers, and of course Christian Driver. Is he a safety? Is he a corner? Penn State's always had deep safety or deep defensive back classes. I mean, defensive backs are incredibly important for Penn State. I can sit here and say, like, if you look at the rankings, obviously a bunch of them are 4-stars. I think is Lamont the only one who's not a 4-star? I believe so. I believe Conrad. Yep. Dakaari. Yeah, I mean, the other 4 are 4-stars. So from that perspective, it certainly ranks up there highly. But I'm not the kind of guy who's going to sit here and say, this is the best defensive class of all time. Okay, talk to me in three years from now when these guys are out there. That's how I judge things. I think that's how fans, I think that's the right way to do it. Let's judge them when they get on the field. But, of course, we're here to give ratings and all those things. And from that perspective, all my colleagues think highly of all these guys. I mean, Lamont now is kind of one of the most underrated guys in the class in some ways. So let's see how it shakes out. Let's see if all these guys stay committed to. I know I'm sounding negative there right now, but let me say one thing real quick. The Elliot Washington's not the guy I'm really worried about in this class. He was committed to Alabama. He's been firm. And just from my few talks with Elliot, I feel very good about Elliot. The St. Thomas Aquinas guys getting that Oklahoma offer.
Yep.
We'll see. They do. I still wonder about them a little bit.
Yep. Yeah, and yeah, there's you just see these things, right? A random tweet where both Conrad Hussey and King Mack were given eyeball emojis to something. Could have been one of their friends, could have been nothing, but that's the paranoia of following recruiting. With Washington, in this particular situation, how close was the competition with Michigan State and how, maybe not how Penn State won out in the end, but, it seemed like it was very close, and you mentioned he's very quiet. What was your read on the situation of how close this has been for another one, mentioning King Mack, that came down to the wire between Penn State and Michigan State?
So Elliot did not do any interviews after his Michigan State visit, so I can't point to anything and point to any quotes of him and saying, it's neck and neck or one school has the edge. We don't have a Michigan State cited on 3. I have plenty of friends who cover Michigan State after doing this for the last decade or so. And from talking to them, they did feel like Michigan State was certainly in the mix. I mean, quite a few of them thought Michigan State was the team to beat. There was talk that when Elliot Washington left Michigan State that maybe he had kind of given him a wink, wink, nudge, nudge. It's a matter of time. But it's all, when we get to this time of the year and all the coaches are on vacation, it's always – everybody's positive. Everybody's excited. I can sit here.
Everyone's by the pool feeling great.
Right. And there's never, it's just hard to tell, guys. With Elliot, and like the main thing is when we get to this point in the year, these 2023 guys just want nothing to do with any more interviews. So there's only a select few who are really opening up about that kind of stuff after they commit or during their visits, of course. So I'd be lying if I said I had a great feel for what Elliot Washington was thinking of Michigan State or where Michigan State ranked at the end. I know Penn State felt good. I know Michigan State felt good. He's ended up at Penn State. Celebrate, everyone.
Let's take a look at what he brings to the table in T. Frank's film room. Some interesting things. Again, this is not a full comprehensive breakdown. I'll be getting into that and bringing it to you later at bluewhiteillustrated.com. But the main thing that stands out to me is where we talked about he's a safety in some places, he's a corner in another place. So that when you watch the film, it was one of the things I texted you right away when I first cracked open his highlight film is this dude's thick. Like, he's 5'11", 190 pounds. He's a very physically mature player, and that made me wonder what's his speed like. But you look at film, you look at his trigger downhill. I think that's his strength as he comes down, and he is violent and mean in run support. Once again, making you think that this guy is a safety, but that's also a very important skill as a zone corner. And I think that's where, if you're talking about Alabama, you're talking about Penn State, and maybe one of the reasons why he's moved on from Alabama. I don't know that he has the elite single coverage skills, maybe some of the length we talked about earlier, but he has a lot of the other things. Tackling, recognition, he plays a very mature game where he's playing college style drops where he's got his back to the sideline, he's breaking on balls. The one thing probably is ball productivity, but at the same time in high school, that can be a bit of a problem with if people don't throw the ball at you, what are you supposed to do? So, I got the sense watching some of his games, he's not the most targeted guy on the field, but he does seem to make good plays on the ball when they get around him. But really just that size and thickness to me, if I'm watching for an on-3 update coming up here in the next week or so, not to pour cold water on this party here, but if I'm looking at somebody who might move down in the rankings, I think Elliot Washington is that kind of guy. Not to say that he's any worse than he was, but as you mature, as you get older, as we see more of the development curve, he didn't get to that 6-foot mark. He didn't probably get to that projection of where he might be originally. But as far as a football player, I really like what I've seen from Elliot Washington in his positional skills. His football intelligence seems like it's sky high. And he is, I think, in the end, a top 150 player in the country as far as his physical skills, running a 10.7 in the 100-meter dash. So he is fast. He is corner-level ability. And he's got that size, tenacity, intelligence. He's got a lot of the things you're looking for to be a complete DB, but maybe just a smidge under what you were expecting in his growth development curve. So he might drop down out of the top 100 at some point in the future. Now, I'm not speaking for Charles Power. I'm just looking at the film, kind of giving my assessment. Anything else before we get out of here?
It's 4:30 on a Friday, my friend. I am checking out. Now, I'm going to Pittsburgh on Sunday. I'm looking forward to it. Going to go out there and watch some Tamir and Lamont and a bunch of guys. So we will report back next week on those guys.
Bring back content as we always need it. I'm your host, Thomas Frank Carr. That's Ryan Snyder, Recruiting Insider. We will definitely be back because there's more commits coming for Penn State football in the month of July. Subscribe to Blue White Illustrated here on YouTube and hit the notification button so you don't miss any of them.